I mean, we've got to just make sure we're getting it right. And being honest and transparent as much as possible, which we have not been.
What about the Paseo then? Because a lot of people
No, a
felt
lot
the
of
same
people are
way that,
Yeah.
you know, Alyssa Kennedy, who just threw her support
Yeah.
behind you, she was very much against
She was, yeah.
it not going through the proper channels according to Sydney ordinance, that the people along the Paseo get a say.
Yeah.
And just out of nowhere it comes about that, hey, we're going to change it to MLK.
Yeah. You know, my view is this, and it's funny because sometimes on the campaign trail they're like, you know, I get attacked for not carrying things through, but that one, I guess, is, you know, one I did. But here's the deal. We had a city ordinance. Council often will modify a city ordinance for any number of things. And I think the ordinance that claimed that you always need 75% of property owners on a street has never been applied in Kansas City. And we checked. Not for Truman Road, not for Emmanuel Cleaver, not for, you know,
But it was still the
Cookingham
law,
Drive.
wasn't it? It was still on the books.
Right, and so I guess the answer will be, and I hate to sound too much like President Nixon, that's always a bad place, but not that the president is the law, but no, you can modify an ordinance with a subsequent ordinance, right? And what we did with that ordinance was said, and I pushed back on folks who said there was no public notice. You covered the stories. Right. There was a rally in April. There was a citizens commission that did nothing. Their recommendation sat on a desk. And then in the fall, we introduced an ordinance that said, all right, do the name change. It sits and languishes for about 5 months, and then finally council takes a vote. I know there are a lot of folks that will have qualms with that process, but frankly, I believe in representative government. Everybody who hated that process had the opportunity to vote against some of us, and likely did. You know, myself and Councilwoman Justice voted for the name change, and we both heard mightily about it. But I guess
how do you feel now?
You know, I hate to say it this way. Part of the reason I was ever in support of it was because I saw how much it mattered to a certain, you know, an amount of people in our city, and I think it still matters to them. That said, I think I agree with you in suggesting that we should have had more of a conversation about race and place and name in that process.
Do you think it was? And I've talked to a lot of people about this, all different races.
Yeah.
Was it ever really a racial deal, or was it historical preservation of George Kessler and his vision for the Paseo and the basic of what our city grew up around?
On that one,
from what I got is that, hey, let's do 63rd Street. That way it can cut across all sections of Kansas City. Everyone can at some time during the day be on MLK. On
race, it depends on who you're asking, right? I mean, I think the ministers, Southern Christian Leadership Conference folks and all that would say, yeah, it is about that to them. I think a lot of the folks who are against the name change would say it has nothing to do with, in fact, all of them would say it has nothing to do with race. It's more about preservation of our city. I mean, I'll tell you where my mind changed, because I got my wings clipped a little, because I always thought we should just take the name J.C. Nichols off of both the Fountain and the Parkway, and I actually continue to think that.
Because of his issues in the past.
Right, exactly. I mean, I just don't think that's history that we want to, you know, commend. I suggested that as a Martin Luther King honorific.
I remember that. And it went over not too well.
Went over terribly. How dare you? But, you know, the thing I thought about as that went on, and a minister told me this, and I had to think about it for a minute. He was saying, a black minister, and he was saying, why is it that to appreciate someone, he's talking about black folks, have to go somewhere else to do it? He's like, I want it in my neighborhood. I don't want it to have to go 63rd Street, because he was a great black minister. And their story and their view of him is that's what we want to recognize. We're not recognizing somebody else always with it. And I was like, you know, that's an interesting perspective.
That is it. I hadn't thought of that.
Right. But, you know,
it's kind of an ownership.
Yeah.
But being a white person, I'm thinking, well, MLK helped everyone. He helped our whole world.
Right.
So why shouldn't we all enjoy that? And I admit, I get that perspective.
Right. You know, I mean, you see this in the news. Name changes are like the most interesting thing, because they're these stories that, although not the most important, not more important than homicides or education, everybody has a take, right? And everybody understands the story. It's pretty clear. And I just hope as we go to that election in November, you know, my dream world is that we come to some level of compromise before then. And, you know, if I'm lucky enough to get elected, I would like to bring the most strident, you know, minister and some of the most strident folks that are preserving the Paseo name, and say, all right, what can we do? Or do we have a recommendation out of that?